Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. My name is Chris Bowick, and you're listening to the Lucid Learning Podcast. Lucid Learning is a podcast meant to be boring for people who have trouble sleeping. I'll be reading Wikipedia articles in a dry, boring voice. You may find some of these articles interesting, but I'll be changing topics constantly using the Wikipedia hyperlinks. I think it's fun to see where these hyperlinks take me throughout the show, and that's where the titles of the episodes come from. When I came up with this idea, I wanted to create a podcast for people to fall asleep to, and I thought, how can I make this boring on purpose? So the idea is that you will get bored of me talking about completely random topics. Don't forget to subscribe or follow this channel. I'll be posting weekly from now on. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, where I also post these in a video format. If you search Lucid Learning Podcast, it's not a recording of me in a video. It's just, I know that some podcast apps have ads that are very loud. So if you're trying to listen to this while you're falling asleep, obviously those would wake you back up. And right now you can find me on a lot of different apps. I know Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, and a good bit more that I saw that I didn't even apply for. I guess they may just automatically go pull RSS feeds. If you have a topic you'd like to send in, you can email me at lucidlearningpodcast@gmail.com. And thank you for listening. We'll get right into it. So, first things first, I've upgraded my microphone, and I'm really excited about that. The only real complaint I've gotten is that my microphone quality was awful, which I knew it was, but I guess I was just so excited to record that I just jumped right into it. Anyways, so the topic that I've decided to start with, you may have already heard about him. I noticed that I actually had some people listening in Canada, and if you're from Canada, you almost positively have heard of this person. I happened to stumble across someone talking about Terry Fox recently, and they posted a very quick description of who this man was, and I just thought he'd be a great person to read about. So I waited until recording to actually read about him. So Terry Fox was a Canadian athlete, humanitarian, and cancer research activist. In 1980, with one leg having been amputated due to cancer, he embarked on an east to west cross-Canada run to raise money and awareness for cancer research. Although the spread of his cancer eventually forced him to end his quest after 143 days and 5,373 kilometers. That's 3,339 miles, and it ultimately cost him his life. His efforts resulted in a lasting worldwide legacy. The annual Terry Fox Run, first held in 1981, has grown to involve millions of participants in over 60 countries and is now the world's largest one-day fundraiser for cancer research. Over $750 million has been raised in his name as of January 2018. Fox was a distance runner and basketball player for his Port Coquitlam, British Columbia High School and Simon Fraser University. His right leg was amputated in 1977 after he was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, though he continued to run using an artificial leg. He also played wheelchair basketball in Vancouver, winning 3 national championships. In 1980, he began the Marathon of Hope, a cross-country run to raise money for cancer research. He hoped to raise $1 from each of Canada's 24 million people. He began with little fanfare from St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. He began with little fanfare in April and ran the equivalent of a full marathon every day. Fox had become a national star by the time he reached Ontario. He made numerous public appearances with businessmen, athletes, and politicians in his effort to raise money. He was forced to end his run outside Thunder Bay when the cancer spread to his lungs. His hopes of overcoming the disease and completing his marathon ended when he died 9 months later. In addition to being the youngest person ever named a Companion of the Order of Canada, Fox won the 1980 Lou Marsh Award as the nation's top sportsman and was named Canada's Newsmaker of the Year in both 1980 and 1981. Considered a national hero, he has had many buildings, statues, roads, and parks named in his honor across the country. Terry Fox was born in Winnipeg, Manitoba, to Roland and Betty Fox. Roland was a switchman for the Canadian National Railway. Fox had an elder brother, Fred, a younger brother, Daryl, and a younger sister, Judith. Fox's maternal grandmother is Matisse, and Fox's younger brother, Daryl, has official Matisse status. His family moved to Surrey, British Columbia in 1966, then settled in Port Coquitlam in 1968. His parents were dedicated to their family, and his mother was especially protective of her children. It was through her that Fox developed his stubborn dedication to whatever task he committed to do. His father recalled that he was extremely competitive, noting that Fox hated to lose so much that he would continue at any activity until he succeeded. He was an enthusiastic athlete, playing soccer, rugby, and baseball as a child. His passion was for basketball, and though he stood only 5 feet tall and was a poor player at the time, Fox sought to make his school team in grade 8. Bob McGill, Fox's physical education teacher and basketball coach at Mary Hill Junior High School, felt he was better suited to be a distance runner and encouraged him to take up the sport. Fox had no desire for cross-country running, but took it up because he respected and wanted to please his coach. He was determined to continue playing basketball, even if he was the last substitute on the team. Fox played only 1 minute in his grade 8 season, but dedicated his summers to improving his play. He became a regular player in grade 9 and earned a starting position in grade 10. In grade 12, he won his high school's Athlete of the Year award, jointly with his best friend Doug Allward. Though he was initially unsure whether he wanted to go to university, Fox's mother convinced him to enroll at Simon Fraser University, where he studied kinesiology as a stepping stone to becoming a physical education teacher. He tried out for the junior varsity basketball team, earning a spot ahead of more talented players due to his determination. On November 12, 1976, as Fox was driving to the family home at Morrill Street in Port Coquitlam, he became distracted by nearby bridge construction and crashed into the back of a pickup truck. While his car was left undrivable, Fox emerged with only a sore right knee. He again felt pain in December but chose to ignore it until the end of basketball season. By March 1977, the pain had intensified and he finally went to a hospital where he was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, a form of cancer that often starts near the knees. Fox believed his car accident weakened his knee and left it vulnerable to the disease, though his doctors argued there was no connection. He was told that his leg had to be amputated. He would require chemotherapy treatment, and that recent medical advances meant he had a 50% chance of survival. Fox learned that 2 years before, the figure would have been only 15%. The improvement in survival rates impressed on him the value of cancer research. With the help of an artificial leg, Fox was walking 3 weeks after the amputation. He then progressed to playing golf with his father. Doctors were impressed with Fox's positive outlook, stating it contributed to his rapid recovery. He endured 16 months of chemotherapy and found the time he spent in the British Columbia Cancer Control Agency facility difficult as he watched fellow cancer patients suffer and die from the disease. Fox ended his treatment with new purpose. He felt he owed his survival to medical advances and wished to live his life in a way that would help others find courage. In the summer of 1977, Rick Hansen, working with the Canadian Wheelchair Sports Association, invited Fox to try out for his wheelchair basketball team. Although he was undergoing chemotherapy treatments at the time, Fox's energy impressed Hansen. Less than 2 months after learning how to play the sport, Fox was named a member of the team for the national championship in Edmonton. He won 3 national titles with the team and was named an All-Star by the North American Wheelchair Basketball Association in 1980. Wow. The night before his cancer surgery, Fox had been given an article about Dick Traum, the first amputee to complete the New York City Marathon. The article inspired him. He embarked on a 14-month training program, telling his family he planned to compete in a marathon himself. In private, he devised a more extensive plan. His hospital experiences had made Fox angry at how little money was dedicated to cancer research. Which, I guess this was a different time. This was in the 80s. I'm not sure how much cancer research was being done in the 80s as far as like public funding. But he intended to run the length of Canada in the hope of increasing cancer awareness, a goal he initially divulged to only his friend Douglas Allward. Fox ran with an unusual gait, as he was required to hop step on his good leg due to the extra time the springs in his artificial leg required to reset after each step. He found the training painful, as the additional pressure he had to place on both his good leg and his stump led to bone bruises, blisters, and intense pain. Fox found that after about 20 minutes of each run, he crossed a pain threshold and the run became easier. On September 2nd, 1979, Fox competed in a 17-mile road race in Prince George. He finished in last place, 10 minutes behind his closest competitor, but his effort was met with tears and applause from the other participants. Following the marathon, he revealed his full plan to his family. His mother discouraged him, angering Fox, though she later came to support the project. She recalled, he said, "I thought you'd be one of the first persons to believe in me, and I wasn't. I was the first person who let him down." Fox initially hoped to raise $1 million, then $10 million, but later sought to raise $1 for each of Canada's 24 million citizens. On October 15th, 1979, Fox sent a letter to the Canadian Cancer Society in which he announced his goal and appealed for funding. He stated that he would conquer his disability and promised to complete his run, even if he had to crawl every last mile. Explaining why he wanted to raise money for research, Fox described his personal experiences of cancer treatment. "I soon realized that would only be half my quest, for as I went through the 16 months of the physically and emotionally draining ordeal of chemotherapy, I was rudely awakened by the feelings that surrounded and coursed through the cancer clinic. There were faces with the brave smiles, and the ones who had given up smiling. There were feelings of hopeful denial, and the feelings of despair. My quest would not be a selfish one. I could not leave knowing these faces and feelings would still exist, even though I would be set free from mine. Somewhere the hurting must stop, and I was determined to take myself to the limit for this cause." Fox made no promises that his effort would lead to a cure for cancer, but he closed his letter with the statement, "We need your help. The people in cancer clinics all over the world need people who believe in miracles. I am not a dreamer, and I'm not saying that this will initiate any kind of definitive answer or cure to cancer. I believe in miracles. I have to." The Cancer Society was skeptical of his dedication, but agreed to support Fox once he had acquired sponsors and requested he get a medical certificate from a heart specialist stating that he was fit to attempt the run. Fox was diagnosed with left ventricular hypertrophy, or an enlarged heart, a condition commonly associated with athletes. Doctors warned Fox of the potential risks he faced, though they did not consider his condition a significant concern. They endorsed his participation when he promised that he would stop immediately if he began to experience any heart problems. A second letter was sent to several corporations seeking donations for a vehicle and running shoes, and to cover the other costs of the run. Fox sent other letters asking for grants to buy a running leg. He observed that while he was grateful to be alive following his cancer treatment, I remember promising myself that, should I live, I would rise up to meet this new challenge face to face and prove myself worthy of life, something too many people take for granted. The Ford Motor Company donated a camper van, while Imperial Oil contributed fuel and Adidas his running shoes. Fox turned away any company that requested he endorse their products and refused any donation that carried conditions, as he insisted that nobody was to profit from his run. The marathon began on April 12, 1980, when Fox dipped his right leg into the Atlantic Ocean near St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and filled 2 large bottles with ocean water. He intended to keep one as a souvenir and pour the other into the Pacific Ocean upon completing his journey at Victoria, British Columbia. Fox was supported on his run by Doug Allward, who drove the van and cooked meals. Fox was met with gale force winds, heavy rain, and a snowstorm in the first days of his run. He was initially disappointed with the reception he received, but was heartened upon arriving in Channel Porto Vasquez, Newfoundland and Labrador, where the town's 10,000 residents presented him with a donation of over $10,000. Throughout the trip, Fox frequently expressed his anger and frustration to those he saw as impeding the run, and he fought regularly with Allward. By the time they reached Nova Scotia, they were barely on speaking terms, and it was arranged for Fox's brother Daryl, then 17, to join them as a buffer. Fox left the Maritimes on June 10th and faced new challenges entering Quebec due to his group's inability to speak French and drivers who continually forced him off the road. Fox arrived in Montreal on June 22nd, 1/3 of the way through his 8,000-kilometer journey, having collected over $200,000 in donations. Around this time, Fox's run caught the attention of Isidore Sharp, who was the founder and CEO of Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts, and who had lost a son to melanoma in 1978, just a year after Terry's diagnosis. Sharp was intrigued by the story of a one-legged kid trying to do the impossible and run across the country, so he offered food and accommodation at his hotels en route. When Fox was discouraged because so few people were making donations, Sharp pledged $2 a mile and persuaded close to 1,000 other corporations to do the same. Sharp's encouragement persuaded Fox to continue with the Marathon of Hope. Convinced by the Canadian Cancer Society that arriving in Ottawa for Canada Day would aid fundraising efforts, he remained in Montreal for a few extra days. Fox crossed into Ontario at the town of Hawkesbury on the last Saturday in June. He was met by a brass band and thousands of residents who lined the streets to cheer him on, while the Ontario Provincial Police gave him an escort throughout the province. Despite the sweltering heat of summer, he continued to run 26 miles per day. On his arrival in Ottawa, Fox met Governor General Ed Shire and Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, and was the guest of honor at numerous sporting events in the city. In front of 16,000 fans, he performed a ceremonial kickoff at a Canadian Football League game and was given a standing ovation. Fox's journal reflected his growing excitement at the reception he had received, as he began to understand how deeply moved Canadians were by his efforts. On July 11th, a crowd of 10,000 people met Fox in Toronto, where he was honored in Nathan Phillips Square. As he ran to the square, he was joined on the road by many people, including National Hockey League star Darryl Sittler, who presented Fox with his 1980 All-Star Game jersey. The Cancer Society estimated it collected $100,000 in donations that day alone. That evening, he threw the ceremonial first pitch at Exhibition Stadium, preceding a baseball game between the Toronto Blue Jays and the Cleveland Indians. As he continued through Southern Ontario, he was met by Hockey Hall of Famer Bobby Orr, who presented him with a check for $25,000. Fox considered meeting Orr the highlight of his journey. So, I know I'm supposed to be changing topics, and that's what I do in this podcast, is I go from topic to topic, but I feel like this is something that I need to read more of because of what he did. It's just insane. So, as Fox's fame grew, the Cancer Society scheduled him to attend more functions and give more speeches. Fox attempted to accommodate any request that he believed would raise money, no matter how far out of his way it took him. He bristled, however, at what he felt were media intrusions into his personal life. For example, when the Toronto Star reported that he had gone on a date, Fox was left unsure whom he could trust in the media after negative articles began to emerge, including one by the Globe and Mail that characterized him as a tyrannical brother who verbally abused Darryl and claimed he was running because he held a grudge against a doctor who had misdiagnosed his condition, allegations he referred to as trash. So it's like the National Enquirer or something like that, I would imagine, writing stuff like this. Well, is the Globe and Mail like a satirical? Wow, never mind. That's a legitimate Canadian newspaper. It's the most widely read newspaper on weekdays and Saturdays, although it falls slightly behind the Toronto Star in overall weekly circulation. So no, this was a legitimate newspaper writing these things. Okay. The physical demands of running a marathon every day took their toll on Fox's body. Apart from the rest days in Montreal taken at the request of the Cancer Society, he refused to take a day off, even on his 22nd birthday. Wow, he was only 22. That's young. He frequently suffered shin splints and an inflamed knee. He developed cysts on his stump and experienced dizzy spells. At one point, he suffered a soreness in his ankle that would not go away. Although he feared he had developed a stress fracture, he ran for 3 more days before seeking medical attention, and was then relieved to learn it was tendinitis and could be treated with painkillers. Fox rejected calls for him to seek regular medical checkups, and he dismissed suggestions he was risking his future health. In spite of his immense recuperative capacity, Fox found that by late August he was exhausted before he began his day's run. On September 1st, outside Thunder Bay, he was forced to stop briefly after he suffered an intense coughing fit and experienced pains in his chest. Unsure what to do, he resumed running as the crowds along the highway shouted out their encouragement. A few miles later, short of breath and with continued chest pain, he asked Allward to drive him to a hospital. He feared immediately that he had run his last kilometer. The next day, Fox held a tearful press conference, during which he announced that his cancer had returned and spread to his lungs. He was forced to end his run after 143 days and 5,373 kilometers. Fox refused offers to complete the run in his stead, stating that he wanted to complete his marathon himself. So, Fox had raised $1.7 million by the time he was forced to abandon the marathon. He realized that the nation was about to see the consequences of the disease and hoped that this might lead to greater generosity. A week after his run ended, the CTV television network organized a nationwide telethon in support of Fox and the Canadian Cancer Society. Supported by Canadian and international celebrities, The 5-hour event raised $10.5 million. Among the donations were $1 million each by the governments of British Columbia and Ontario, the former to create a new research institute to be founded in Fox's name, and the latter an endowment given to the Ontario Cancer Treatment and Research Foundation. Donations continued throughout the winter, and by the following April, over $23 million had been raised. Supporters and well-wishers from around the world inundated Fox with letters and tokens of support. At one point, he was receiving more mail than the rest of Port Coquitlam combined. Such was his fame that one letter addressed simply to Terry Fox, Canada, was successfully delivered. In September 1980, he was invested in a special ceremony as a companion of the Order of Canada. He was the youngest person to be so honored. The Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia named him to the Order of the Dogwood, the province's highest award. Canada's Sports Hall of Fame commissioned a permanent exhibit, and Fox was named the winner of the Lou Marsh Award for 1980 as the nation's top athlete. He was named Canada's 1980 Newsmaker of the Year. The Ottawa Citizen described the national response to his marathon as one of the most powerful outpourings of emotion and generosity in Canada's history. In the following months, Fox received multiple chemotherapy treatments, but the disease continued to spread. As his conditions worsened, Canadians hoped for a miracle, and Pope John Paul II sent a telegram saying that he was praying for Fox. Doctors turned to experimental interferon treatments, though their effectiveness against osteogenic sarcoma was unknown. He suffered an adverse reaction to his first treatment, but continued the program after a period of rest. Fox was readmitted to the Royal Columbian Hospital in New Westminster on June 19, 1881, with chest congestion and developed pneumonia. He fell into a coma and died at 4:35 a.m. on June 28, 1981, with his family by his side. The government of Canada ordered flags across the country lowered to half-mast, an unprecedented honor that was usually reserved for statesmen. Addressing the House of Commons, Trudeau said, "It occurs very rarely in the life of a nation that the courageous spirit of one person unites all people in the celebration of his life and in the mourning of his death. We do not think of him as the one who was defeated by misfortune, but as one who has inspired us with the example of triumph of the human spirit over adversity." His funeral in Port Coquitlam was attended by 40 relatives and 200 guests, and broadcast on national television. Hundreds of communities across Canada also held memorial services. A public memorial service was held on Parliament Hill in Ottawa, and Canadians again overwhelmed Cancer Society offices with donations. Wow, so that's crazy. What a short, impactful life. So now, I think this is the run that's still going on in his honor. So it's called the Terry Fox Run. One of Fox's earliest supporters was Isidore Sharp, founder of the Four Seasons Hotels. Sharp had lost his own son to cancer and offered Fox and his companions free accommodation at his hotels. Sharp also proposed an annual fundraising run in Fox's name. Fox agreed, but insisted that the runs be non-competitive. There were to be no winners or losers, and anyone who participated could run, walk, or ride. Sharp faced opposition to the project. The Cancer Society feared that a fall run would detract from its traditional April campaigns, while other charities believed that an additional fundraiser would have less money for their causes. Sharp persisted, and he, the Four Seasons Hotels, and the Fox family organized the very first Terry Fox Run on September 13th, 1981. Over 300 people took part and raised $3.5 million in the first Terry Fox run. Schools across Canada were urged to join the second run, held on September 19th, 1982. School participation has continued since, evolving into the National School Run Day. The runs, which raised over $20 million in their first 6 years, grew into an international event as over 1 million people in 60 countries took part in 1999, raising $15 million that year alone. By the Terry Fox Run's 25th anniversary, more than 3 million people were taking part annually. Grants from the Terry Fox Foundation, which organizes the runs, have helped Canadian scientists make numerous advances in cancer research. The Terry Fox Run is the world's largest one-day fundraiser for cancer research, and over $750 million has been raised in his name as of January 2018. The 30th Terry Fox Run was held September 19th, 2010. So it's really hard to go away from this topic, to just click on an article and stop reading about Terry Fox, just because of everything that he accomplished and everything that he did. So I actually stopped recording and was thinking, like, where can I even go with this? So I figured I'd read about just the marathon in general and, the origins and, basically where it's at now. And I also want to read about Eliud Kipchoge, who recently broke the 2-hour barrier, which is, if you've ever ran distance, that is such an insane thing to think about how fast he was running. Because I ran in high school, like cross country and track, and I wasn't very good at it, but I did it. And I ran my mile in 4 minutes 53 seconds. And Eliud Kipchoge would have dusted me in a mile in his 18th mile, which is just crazy. So the history of the marathon comes from the legend of Philippides, the Greek messenger. The legend states that he was sent from the battlefield of Marathon to Athens to announce that the Persians had been defeated in the Battle of Marathon, in which he had just fought, which took place in August or September 490 BC. It is said that he ran the entire distance without stopping and burst into the assembly exclaiming, I don't know how to pronounce that, but basically, we have won, before collapsing and dying. I've always heard that he exclaimed, what was it, Nike? Was that what it was? But that may have just been a myth that he said that. But he exclaimed whatever this word is that says we have won before collapsing and dying. The account of the run from Marathon to Athens first appears in Plutarch's On the Glory of Athens in the 1st century AD, which quotes from Heraclides Ponticus's lost work, given the runner's name as either Thersippus of Archius or Euclides. Satirist Lucian of Samosata first gives an account closest to the modern version of the story, but it is writing tongue-in-cheek and also names the runner Philippides. There is a debate about the historical accuracy of this legend. The Greek historian Herodotus, the main source for the Greco-Persian Wars, mentions Philippides as the messenger who ran from Athens to Sparta asking for help, and then ran back, a distance of over 240 kilometers or 150 miles each way. In some Herodotus manuscripts, the name of the runner between Athens and Sparta is given as Philippides. Herodotus makes no mention of a messenger sent from Marathon to Athens, and relates that the main part of the Athenian army, having fought and won the grueling battle, and fearing a naval raid by the Persian fleet against an undefended Athens, marched quickly back from the battle to Athens, arriving the same day. In 1879, Robert Browning wrote the poem Phidippides. Browning's poem, his composite story, became part of late 19th century popular culture and was accepted as a historical legend. Mount Pentelicus stands between Marathon and Athens, which means that if Philippides actually made his famous run after the battle, he had to run around the mountain, either to the north or to the south. The latter and more obvious route matches almost exactly the modern Marathon Athens Highway, which follows the lay of the land southwards from Marathon Bay and along the coast, then takes a gentle but protracted climb westward towards the eastern approach to Athens, between the foothills of Mount Hymettus and Penteli, and then gently downhill to Athens proper. This route, as it existed when the Olympics were revived in 1896, was approximately 40 kilometers or 25 miles long, and this was the approximate distance originally used for marathon races. However, there have been suggestions that Philippides might have followed another route, a westward climb along the eastern and northern slopes of Mount Penteli to the pass of Dionysus, and then a straight southward downhill path to Athens. This route is considerably shorter, 35 kilometers, or 22 miles, but includes a very steep initial climb of more than 5 kilometers. So, I would like to read about Eliud Kipchoge breaking that 2-hour barrier, which he broke the 2-hour barrier, but it was like every condition was perfect. He had pacers, he had the shoes that are being, it's like big news in running. These shoes that some see as cheating, actually. He had a pace car that told him, it went the exact pace he had to run. And it had like this line drawn on the ground that they could follow, that they would know, like, if I'm behind this line, we're not going fast enough, that kind of thing. It's really interesting, everything that they had to do to break this barrier. And the craziest thing is that his marathon time before really wasn't bad, right? I mean, he was already running almost sub 2. He set the world record, I think it was 2 hours, 1 minute, but breaking that 2-hour barrier was a huge feat, even with everything being set up perfect for him. So it was the Ineos 159 challenge. It was a 2019 project to break the 2-hour mark for running the marathon distance. The event was specifically built for Kenyan athlete Eliud Kipchoge and held in Vienna, Austria on 12 October 2019. Due to the rotating pacemakers, delivery of hydration by bicycle, and the lack of open competition, the achievement was not eligible to be ratified as a marathon world record, and it is not recognized as such by World Athletics. So they tried this before in 2017. Instead of 3 participants, there was now only 1 participant, Eliud Kipchoge, the world record holder in the men's marathon and the current defending Olympic marathon champion. Kipchoge set the marathon world record of 2 hours, 1 minute, and 39 seconds at the Berlin Marathon on 16 September 2018. In the previous attempt on 6 May 2017, he was the fastest participant and missed the 2-hour target by 25 seconds. That was the initial Ineos challenge. I don't know if it was Ineos though, but he won the event by over 6 minutes. On 6 May 2019, the 65th anniversary of the 4-minute mile, it was announced that Kipchoge would attempt again to achieve a sub-2-hour marathon run. For the Ineos Challenge, Kipchoge was joined by 41 pacemakers, who rotated twice each lap and ran in a K formation rather than a diamond formation chosen for the previous attempt. Each lap of the course featured two 4.3 kilometer or 2.7 mile out and back stretches of Hauptali, with the turning points coming at the Bluestaus and Bannister roundabouts at either end of the avenue in the Prater Park. The entire route inclines only 2.4 meters, and spectators were present for the attempt. So it's only, about 2.5 miles, 2 3/4 miles of a stretch. So there's tons of people there, I would imagine. The organizers planned to run the event on Saturday, 12 October 2019, but they had a reserve window of 8 days in case of poor weather conditions. The attempt was run on 12 October starting at 8:15 Central Eastern Time, Central European Time. Organizers allowed a start time between 5 and 9, but chose 8:15 to maximize viewership. The weather conditions were expected to be dry with a temperature of 48 degrees Fahrenheit, 9 degrees Celsius at the start, rising to 12 degrees Celsius, 54 degrees Fahrenheit at the finish. Kipchoge did finish it. He completed the challenge with an official time of 1 hour, 59 minutes, 40 seconds. The achievement was recognized by the Guinness World Records with the title Fastest Marathon Distance Male and Fastest Marathon Distance Under 2 hours. Kipchoge stated, "I'm feeling good. After Roger Bannister in 1954, it took another 63 years. I tried and I did not get it. 65 years, I'm the first man. I want to inspire many people that no human is limited." And Roger Bannister was people have probably more than likely heard of him, but he's the first person to run a sub-4 mile. So he was the first person to run a mile in under 4 minutes. So the organizers of the attempt added many techniques during the run, which cumulatively assisted Kipchoge and the pacemakers. Pacing lasers guided the pacemakers and the main runner, thus allowing them to run at a precise pace, and meaning energy was not lost in unwanted acceleration. The route was carefully chosen to ensure that no effort would be wasted on battling the wind or on directional or incline changes. This was achieved by the fact that most of the course was lined with tall trees reducing wind, and the course was very flat. The location of the race was chosen because its time zone was close to that of Kaptagat, Kenya, where Kipchoge trains. This meant Kipchoge would not be affected by jet lag or have his sleeping and eating patterns disrupted. The route was picked to be at low altitude to increase oxygen in the air and thus help performance. And here's the part I was talking about, his shoes. Kipchoge wore an improved version of Nike's previously unreleased Vaporfly Next% running shoes, claimed to improve running economy by 4%. The shoes were not banned by the IAAF, and the top 10 men in the Chicago Marathon wore Vaporflies. It was reported that Kipchoge and Brigikowski, who broke the women's world record in Chicago, wore bespoke versions of the shoe with the model called Alpha Fly. The Nike Vaporfly that they wore has a carbon fiber plate fitted in its chunky foam sole, which supposedly helps propel the wearer forward. A group of athletes complained to the IAAF about the shoes, leading the governing body to create a working party to look at the issue. However, Kipchoge had set his world record wearing them a year earlier, as did Abraham Kiptum when he set the half marathon record. In addition, the 5 fastest times over the distance were all set by runners wearing these shoes. And that's what's weird. Can you really ban a shoe? It's not like he's taking steroids or, altering his body. He's just wearing shoes. It's really interesting to think about. I don't really know. I mean, it seems like that shoe's working. If everyone that, all of the fastest times have been people wearing that shoe. The V-shaped formation of pacemakers shielded the runner from wind resistance. An early attempt used a differently shaped diamond formation. Hydration was provided by a team coordinator on bicycle and not in the usual water station method in order to save time. The breaking two attempt had been held behind closed doors at Monza with just a few press and Nike employees present. Kipchoge missed the presence of the crowd there and requested that the public be allowed to attend the Ineos 159 challenge. Wow. That's crazy. I wish I could read about these shoes. It doesn't look like there's a page for it though, unfortunately. But I'll read about Roger Bannister. So, Sir Roger Gilbert Bannister was a British middle-distance athlete and neurologist who ran the first sub-4-minute mile. At the 1952 Olympics in Helsinki, Bannister set a British record in the 1500 meters and finished in 4th place. This achievement strengthened his resolve to become the first athlete to finish the mile in under 4 minutes. He accomplished his feat on 6 May 1954 at Iffley Road Track in Oxford, with Chris Chataway and Chris Brasher providing the pacing. When the announcer Norris McWhirter declared the time was 3, the cheers of the crowd drowned out Bannister's exact time, which was 3 minutes and 59.4 seconds. He had attained this record with minimal training while practicing as a junior doctor. Bannister's record lasted only 46 days. That's what I was going to say. It was like once he broke it, it was immediately, it was almost like this mental barrier that people had that back then the 4-minute mile was seen as just impossible. Like it was never going to happen. Humans can't do it. Now I think the world record is like 3:43 by Hickam El Garouche. So obviously, I mean, I think there have been high school students that have broken 4, but back then it was seen as impossible. So it was like once he broke it, it was like everyone was like, okay, it's not impossible. And it was just getting broken after that. And he actually did end up running a even faster time, I believe. 3:58. 3:58.8. So, the sub 4-minute mile took place on 6 May 1954 during a meet between British AAA and Oxford University at Iffley Road Track in Oxford, watched by about 3,000 spectators. With winds of up to 25 miles per hour before the event, Bannister had said twice that he preferred not to run. To conserve his energy and efforts to break the 4-minute barrier, he would try again at another meet. However, the winds dropped just before the race was scheduled to begin, and Bannister did run. The pace setters from his major 1953 attempts, future Commonwealth Games gold medalist Christopher Chataway from the 2 May attempt, and future Olympic Games gold medalist Chris Brasher from the 27 June attempt, combined to provide pacing for Bannister's run. The race was broadcast live by BBC Radio and commentated by 1924 Olympic 100-meter champion Harold Abrahams of Chariots of Fire fame. Bannister had begun his day at a hospital in London, where he sharpened his racing spikes and rubbed graphite on them so they would not pick up too much cinder ash. He took a mid-morning train from Paddington Station to Oxford, nervous about the rainy, windy conditions that afternoon. Being a dual meet format, there were 7 men entered in the mile: Alan Gordon, George Dole, and Nigel Miller from Oxford University, and 4 British AAA runners: Bannister, his 2 pacemakers Brasher and Chataway, and Tom Hullett. Nigel Miller arrived as a spectator, and he only realized that he was due to run when he read the program. Wow. Efforts to borrow a running kit failed, and he could not take part, thus reducing the field to 6.